Jonathan Davis is an economist and wealth advisor, joins us now on BBC Radio London. Jonathan, good evening.
Hello, Mark.
Looking back at this August week of talks then, between Barnier and Davis, how successful do you think they've been?
I think they've been about as useful as a chocolate teapot. It's two sides negotiating over whether they should have jam or marmalade on the toast. My point being that either or both sides have no intention of coming to agreement right now. My suspicion is it's the bureaucrats in Brussels who don't want to get closer to an agreement. My suspicion is that the British government are putting forward proposals which are just being rejected one after the other. But then again, we're talking about a negotiation, a divorce settlement. You'd be mad to want to agree, depending on your point of view, you'd be mad to want to agree before the 11th hour. At the 11th hour, there'll be pressure on both sides to make it happen, and that's when red lines will become vague and we'll get movement on both sides.
It's interesting, your view is reflected on the front page of tomorrow's Daily Express that says, "You can't bully us, Mr Barnier. Stubborn Brussels bosses blamed for Brexit stalemate." Well, clearly the Express was a Brexit newspaper. You'd expected to say that. Why is it to the benefit of the EU27, the remaining countries, for Barnier to be a stumbling block in these negotiations?
Yeah, the presumption in your question is wrong. The presumption is that it's to the benefit of the 27. No, this negotiation is not about helping the remaining countries. This negotiation is about helping the bureaucracy, the empire builders, the unelected bureaucrats in Brussels. They want to get as much money from the British taxpayer as possible in order to keep their system swinging for as long as they can. So, no, it doesn't help the 27. It's all about helping, or trying to help, the thousands and thousands of bureaucrats, civil servants in Brussels.
We've heard today that there has been progress on EU citizens' rights. We're not there yet, but there's been progress. There's been progress on the discussions surrounding a common travel area across the Irish border. But as you've inferred, there's absolutely no progress at all on the divorce bill. Now, if you're right, and it goes down to the 11th hour, that would be, I guess, this time next year, because we're told this has to be wrapped up by about October 2018 so that it can be voted on by the various governments before March of 2019. If that is the case, we're not going to have any trade talks at all, are we? Because we need to have progress on the divorce bill before those trade talks begin.
Well, you know, the trade talks, as you call them, could be over and done in the space of 5 minutes. I cannot believe that the chief executives of VW, Audi, Mercedes, BMW, Peugeot, Renault, etc., I cannot believe that if there's any problem at all in them exporting their goods to the UK, I cannot believe that the same day they won't be banging on the door of Frau Merkel's door, for example, saying, "This is outrageous, we need to be able to sell our goods to the British consumer." So, no, the trade talks actually are a massive red herring, because the Europeans need us far more than we need them. Therefore, that will be a matter of course. It will not be difficult at all. But, of course, the media will make it all as if it's the be-all and end-all. In fact, it's obvious that the Europeans will need us to be their customers in the future.
But if we stick to the line that we want the benefit benefits of the customs union. We want a bespoke customs union that absolutely mirrors the one that we're in at the moment. We want an agreement that gives us the benefits of the single market, but without us paying in, without jurisdiction of the ECJ, without freedom of movement. We're never going to get that. So we may, you're absolutely right, have the chief exec of VW anxious for a deal, but unless we change our negotiating position, we ain't going to get one.
Why do we want the single market? I don't want the single market. I want to have a free trade agreement.
No, I mentioned that because you talked about the importance of the chief executives of German industry. I'm saying that we have equivalent importance given to the leaders of industry in this country, and they want the benefits of the single market, even if we're not in it.
The CBI, the Confederation of British Industry, which represents large multinational corporations, they want the single market because the single market helps multinationals to the detriment of small and medium-sized enterprises. The single market helps the big guys. It doesn't help the small guys. The people of this country in general don't want the single market. What they want is a free trade with European countries and with non-European countries. That is what we want, and that is ultimately what I believe we'll get. And if Peter Bone is to be proved right, the Conservative MP who says that if Theresa May gets a Brexit, then she will become a national hero, the only way she is going to become a national hero is if we get a free trade agreement with the EU, and indeed, therefore, we can trade globally on a simple, clear way, and giving ourselves the opportunity to import cheaply from Africa, from Southeast Asia, from Latin America, and export to America, to China, to the EU, and so on. That is what will make Theresa May a hero.
So even though at the moment 44% of our trade is with the EU, we should forget prioritising that, instead look at Africa, look at the US, whatever Donald Trump may feel he wants to give us, look to Canada, look to Australia. That is the way Theresa May will become this national hero.
Well, your question is astonishing. You've just said it. Our trade with the EU is 44%. That means, I was never particularly good at maths, but that means there's 56% of our trade outside of the EU.
But you take my point, 44% with one bloc.
Yeah, well,
in effect, as opposed to 56% with another 218 countries.
The slowest growing bloc on the planet. And yes, we definitely want to be doing business with more Southeast Asian countries. We definitely want to be doing business with more from India, from Africa. How I dream of us being able to import food from the massive farms in Africa.
Yeah, but all our farmers send all our produce very short distances. They wanted all to go to the south of Ireland, and they wanted to go to continental Europe, the biggest trading bloc that exists at the moment in the country. They're not interested in sending it to Australia.
We want to be increasing our trade with the faster growing areas.
It doesn't make sense to be sending it miles away when it's much, much cheaper to send it 20 miles across the channel, surely?
Well, clearly, sir, you don't understand logistics. If that was the case, why do we buy everything? Why do we import so many products from China? No, you're talking in the 1950s there. This is the year 2017. We have advanced logistics now, international trade, and the One Belt, One Road that China is developing right across from the Far East, right across, indeed, into Europe, is going to transform global trade. No, we want to be trading with faster growing economic blocks, not the slowest growing. And this idea that you're continually perpetuating in the BBC that post-Brexit, it's as if we will stop doing trade with the EU. We will not stop doing trade. We will simply increase our trade outside.
Looking again at Theresa May and what her prospects are, we've talked about Peter Bone, Wellingborough MP, and the fact that he thinks she may be a national hero if she can deliver the sort of Brexit that we've been talking about for the past 5 minutes. Let's just contrast, shall we, with former Tory party chairman Grant Shapps. He says it's too early to be talking about going on and on. Look at George Osborne, former Tory Chancellor, now editor of the Evening Standard. He's compared a premiership to The Living Dead in a second-rate horror film. Who's right?
My perception is that the majority of politicians in the House of Commons, and certainly the bulk in the House of Lords, are Remain people. The minority are for Brexit. So for every Brexiter in Westminster, you will probably find 2 or 3 Remainers. So does that make the Remainers right because they're in the majority? No, it doesn't. Sometimes you can be a minority of 1 against 100 and still be right.
Before we wind up our chat, Jonathan, we should come back to this divorce bill, really where we started our conversation. If I'm right, and this is the point that I'm going to put to the callers to BBC Radio London, if I'm right in understanding what you said, we should not worry when we read our newspapers tomorrow that this negotiation has been a damp squib. It's been whatever it was, the phrase that you used a little bit earlier on, the chocolate teapot. Yes. Because ultimately, this is irrelevant because it will be, in your view, all decided at the 11th hour in a year from now, successfully. And it will be a result that is favourable to the UK.
It does seem likely that we will have Brexit. You used the phrase before I came on, hard Brexit. Let me clarify some terms here. Hard Brexit means Brexit. Soft Brexit means Remain. It does seem likely that we will have Brexit. Certainly, the referendum voted for Brexit. Poll after poll now shows that more and more, even more than 52%, want Brexit. By the time we get closer to actually Brexiting, it will be so comfortable in people's minds that I predict that something like 2/3 of the British population will actually want the Brexit to happen. We shouldn't be concerned about the shenanigans going on in 2017. I'm not absolutely even sure that the British will have finalised agreements with Brussels by October 2018, as you say. And I'll tell you something else. Yes, we shouldn't be concerned by the headlines in the press tomorrow. And on top of that, even if we don't come to an agreement, if ultimately what we do is walk away, we should be happy with that, because ultimately we can talk till the cows come home. I'm an economist. We can talk till the cows come home about the economics of Brexit. Whether or not Brexit will be good economically or not, I happen to believe it will be. There are lots of people who believe it won't be. The one thing that we should always focus on is that there is no democracy in Brussels. This is our means by which we bring back democracy.
Jonathan, lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much for talking to BBC Radio London. That's Jonathan Davis, economist and wealth advisor, an economist clearly who believes that Brexit will be good economically.